If you've been around the channel for a while, you'll know that we have problems with the Knights of expansions. And so, since Tor won't be getting any new stories for the foreseeable future at least, let's take a look back and talk about what we would have done to make keeping up with the Valkorians a little more enjoyable. And of course, there will be massive spoilers for Knights of the Fallen Empire and Knights of the Eternal Throne. Of course, the glib answer to how to deal with the Knights of expansions and the chaos they've left behind is to say it never happened. But we're not going to do that. With this thought experiment, we will assume that the Knights of expansions happen, and we'll leave the story mostly intact in the sense that a third empire sweeps in from out of nowhere and defeats both the Republic and the Empire. We'll also keep the chapter format. So what changes would we make? Well, first of all, the time skip. The time skip has to go. I'm not a fan of time skips in general, but they do have their place. If you need to skip a bunch of time where nothing consequential happens, if you want to show the consequences of the last big thing, but it's going to take some time, then a time skip makes sense. Here, however, BioWare simply uses it to reset the story. They wanted the Knights of the Fallen Empire to be a great place for new players to jump in. Therefore, they needed it to be a clean start. They didn't want new players coming in being bombarded with a bunch of people they didn't know, a bunch of references to events they didn't know about or care about. So, to accomplish this, they gave our characters a 5-year carbonite nap. And when they're finally revived, well, guess what? They've lost everything. Their power, their positions in society, their friends, everything. And while that served BioWare's purpose just fine, it also made the story less enjoyable for me, because it was precisely those connections that gave my characters' stories meaning. So having BioWare strip them all away and replacing them with a bunch of new people and saying, essentially, don't worry, these are far cooler than the ones you lost, just made me resentful of the new guys. And I probably reacted more negatively to the story because of it. But there's another problem with the time skip. It skips some of the most important beats in the narrative, that is, the fall of the Empire and the Republic. I think this would have had far more impact if our characters had actually lived through it. If they had been struggling to defend against the Eternal Empire, and they had had their efforts crumble before them, and watched everything that they had worked for from the beginning of their class stories essentially fall apart and be destroyed. So I would have had the first expansion be our characters defending against this massive onslaught that came from out of nowhere. That way, when they fail and the Eternal Empire prevails, we really feel it, because we lived through it. Because it's our defeats, our failure, our loss, which in turn fuels our characters' need for vengeance or justice. And I would tell this story through class-specific chapters. Now, this could be a little controversial, especially for players who don't have a character from all of the origin stories, but it would have been super cool to have our characters tackling the story from different angles, each one of them contributing their own efforts, in chapters dedicated to highlighting that particular origin story's unique talents. Imagine the heist chapter, but with the smuggler planning and executing it, or a few chapters where the bounty hunter has to take out a high-value target. The consular could have headed up diplomatic initiatives to try to get the Republic and the Empire to work together against the common enemy. The Inquisitor could have gone in search of some ancient artifact or force ritual to deploy in the war, while the agent infiltrates the enemy. Anyway, you get the idea. This way, all of our characters get to retain their class flavor, and none of them have to become the dreaded Outlander Commander. And since our characters will have never left their factions, we would avoid the problem that we have now. That is, our characters are a member of the Alliance that may have or may not have rejoined their factions. And even if you do rejoin your faction, you still get treated like an outsider. This also has the side benefit of allowing all 8 origin stories to remain alive and well. And the last big change I'll talk about is to Valkorion. He wouldn't be in our characters' heads, and he wouldn't be another incarnation of the Emperor. Having him be the Emperor simply complicates the story in ways that it doesn't need to be. Space is big. There's plenty of room for another powerful Force entity. He could have been watching and waiting, just biding his time, and then after the Emperor leaves, after Ziost, he could have decided to make his move. And really, having him be the Emperor didn't have a meaningful impact on the story anyway. I mean, the only person who seems to know, or even care, is our PC. And then only sometimes. So having him just be Valkorion from Zakul wouldn't really change much, but the writers wouldn't have had to twist themselves into knots trying to explain how he was more. Sure, that leaves the Emperor hanging out somewhere in space, but we could always deal with that problem at a later date. So there you have it. Some of the things we would have done differently to try to make the Knights of Expansions better, at least for us. But let us know your thoughts in the comments. Agree with me? Disagree? What would you have done differently, if anything? And while you're down there, why not like and subscribe for more content like this? As always, thanks for watching.